All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim, Rakar Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, and salutation to the hopefully elect out there. All right, it's the brother Izaryah here with the Pittsburgh GMS camp, and been going over the Daniel. I've been going over the GMS homework lately, and got to the portion of the homework where you're supposed to go chapter by chapter and break it down. It was the Daniel 2, Daniel 7, and Daniel 8 breakdowns, and just wanted to do a lesson on it briefly while it was still fresh on my mind. And just like I said, just want to briefly touch on it, not go super duper deep into it, but hopefully through the power and spirit of Yahweh, this will be an edifying lesson. All right. So Daniel 8 verse 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, which is those East Indians, hello buddy, those guys. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. And no offense to anybody who speaks that way. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns. All right. And this ram that has the 2 horns represents the Medes, the Medo-Persian Empire. And just correlate that in Daniel 7. It correlates with the second beast. Daniel 7 and 5, and behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised itself up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. All right, and that bear represents like I said, the Medo-Persian Empire. And when it talks about it raising itself up on one side, well, let's read what it says about this ram. Daniel 8 and 3, then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. Just like that bear had one side lifted up, and the other side was lower. Same thing with this ram. All right, and this represents, like I said, the Medo-Persian Empire. When you read about the downfall of the Babylonian or the Assyrian Empire, it was taken out by Darius the Mede. So the Medes were in power, but Persia was greater than them, and they rose up. And the higher came up last. See, the Medes were smaller, if I'm not mistaken, and the Persians were bigger. And the Persians eventually ended up defeating the Medes and becoming the primary kingdom in this, alliance. I couldn't think of the word. Daniel 8 and 4. And I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, that no beast might stand before him, neither was any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. So if you look at that movie, like the 300, when you look at the Persians, they were a great army. That freaky looking dude, King Xerxes, when he came to Leonidas, he was all weird looking, but you saw what they had. They had elephants. They had those guys who they called the Phantoms. They had a vast army, so vast that they would shake the ground with when they would come to battle. All right, so this is still talking about the Medo-Persian Empire. All right, verse 5. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. So this goat represents the Greeks, okay? Alexander the Greek being the general thereof, or the leader thereof. And so let's just correlate that. It also talks about the Greeks in Daniel 7. Let's see, Daniel 7 and 6. After this I beheld, and lo, or behold, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl, The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. All right, so, according to the breakdown I received from watching Apostle Zahara's breakdown on this, when you talk about, verse 5, and as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. Now, that's how fierce, that's how swiftly they were conquering the different nations, And so I thought that was interesting. When you go to Daniel 7 and 6, it says, it was like a leopard which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl, and that represents it touching not the ground. Even the Babylonian Empire had the eagle's wings, and the Babylonians or the Assyrians were a great kingdom as well. Anyway, let's move along. All right, verse 5. And touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, and that horn represents Alexander the Great, or the Greek, or the creep, Alexander, who Edomites and those who don't know what we call him here in GMS, Alexander the Great, Verse 6, and he came to the ram that had 2 horns, to the Medo-Persian Empire, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. So Alexander took on the Medo-Persian Empire, took on the Persians at that time, if I'm not mistaken. All right. So let's read 7. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler or anger against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. So Alexander took down the Medo-Persian Empire, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. So he took him down. Nothing they could do. There's nothing they could do to stop him. So like I turned from the camera, sounded a little lower. All right, and I'm still messing with my mic settings. Hopefully it's not too loud or too quiet, All right, 8. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. So this is talking about when Alexander the Creep died. And for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. This was his 4 generals, like what they like to call the Diadochi. I think that's how you pronounce it. All right. The Diadochi were the 4 great generals, or the 4 generals who succeeded Alexander. Let's just see. I think it goes into their names here. So it says Greaterus, Antipater. Okay, here we go. Ptolemy, Kyrinos, Demetrius, Sander. And like I said, I didn't want to get too deep into it, but there were 4 generals. I might click on one more link and see if I can find it. So Seleucus came in later. It was Antigonus, Sander. They got so many of them up here. Antigonus was one of them. Lysimachus was another one. Cassander and Ptolemy. Seleucus came later on. And he joined up with Ptolemy and Cassander to fight against Antigonus, because Antigonus was waxing very strong. I remember reading about that. And Apostle Har mentioned it in a video that I saw in preparation for taking that test. I watched another breakdown, and Apostle Har mentioned it, and it triggered a memory because I was reading up on it when I first did the Daniel test, and I was reminded of how there was a discrepancy between what I was finding of the names and what other videos had said that I saw. So now it makes sense, and that's how you'll get when you look up the Diadochi or the 4 generals. You'll get those 4 names, or you'll get 4 names in one place, and then you'll get 4 different names, including Seleucus. But like I said, Seleucus joined up to take down Antigonus, and he replaced Antigonus once he was taken down. All right. Verse 7. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast. Oh, Salaki, I'm supposed to be on 8. Salaki. So let's just read 8 again, Daniel 8 and 8. Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great, the Greek empire. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken. Alexander the Greek died. And 4 came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven, which is his 4 generals. All right, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land, which the pleasant land represents Jerusalem, and this little horn represents let's see, Antiochus Epiphanes, represents Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay. And this is who it represents. Let's keep going. The persecution of the Jews. He waxed great toward the Holy Land. See, the Seleucids, like the Ptolemies before him, had a mild suzerainty. Blah, blah, blah. They basically allowed Judea to have their own sovereignty to some extent, but like it says, this policy was drastically reversed by Antiochus, resulting in harsh persecutions and a revolt against his rule, the Maccabean revolt. And the account is in the book of Maccabees, book of First Maccabees. I think starts around chapter 4. You get the account of what what Antiochus Epiphanes did to the Jews, and it goes to to our people, and it goes into it in Daniel 8 as well. I think I'm done with 7. If not, I'll open it later. All right, Daniel 8 and 10. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. So this represents how he took down some of the tribes of Israel, how he took some of the children of Israel down and persecuted us and destroyed us, All right. Verse 11, yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. All right. And so when it talks about him magnifying himself to the prince of the host, he basically defied the Most High. He defied the Most High, and he took away the place of daily sacrifice by ransacking the temple, taking the goods, taking the treasures out of the temple. And he also, in the place of his sanctuary, he ransacked the temple. He ransacked the temple. Verse 12, and an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. So yeah, he took it so far as to after he ransacked the temple, he was persecuting those who were still practicing Judaism, so to speak, who were practicing keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. He persecuted them, unto death in many cases. All right, verse 13. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another said unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And this is one angel speaking to another angel concerning the vision. All right, verse 14, and he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. All right, and this was 2,300 days, literally, because after a certain amount of time, which it tells you in the book of Maccabees, they actually rebuilt the temple, and they, I believe, they put walls around it. Let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. So when you get to First Maccabees chapter 4, it just talks about how they saw the temple burned up. Verse 38, in First Maccabees 4 and 38. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burnt up, and shrubs growing in the courts, as in a forest, or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priest's chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation, and cast ashes upon their head. And so then it talks about how they started repairing it. And so let's go to verse 60 first, Maccabees 4 and 60. At that time also they builded up the Mount Sion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down as they had done before. So see, this was a literal close amount of time later, 2,300 days later, which I didn't do the calculation of math, but as you can see in the account, that a certain period of time later, not too far off from the original, from chapter 1 to chapter 4, you see them rebuilding the temple and cleaning the sanctuary. All right, Daniel 8 and 15. And it came to pass when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. So this was an angel. And it was the angel Gabriel. Verse 16. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. All right. Salaki 17. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. So this is not talking about the times we're living in today. This is talking about the end. It's later. This is later on, because at this time they still in the Babylonian captivity. They're still in the Babylonian or Assyrian Empire with King Belshazzar. Just to make sure. Belshazzar from Akkadian was the elder son of Nabonidus, last king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. See, so they're still in the Neo-Babylonian Empire. The Persians and Medes still have to come, and then the Greeks have to come, and then later on down the line, Antiochus has to come. So this is just later down the line, you see. All right. So like, let's go back to that 8. All right, so verse 17 again. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. So this is not talking about the end of days, okay? Verse 18, now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground. He was in a trance, but he touched me and set me upright. And he said, behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, which is, the desolation of the temple, taking away the daily sacrifice, the persecution of the children of Israel by Antiochus Epiphanes. He's like, I'm gonna let you know what's gonna be the end of it. For at the time appointed, the end shall be. That amount of days that was spoken. See, the ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. 21. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king, Alexander the Greek. 22. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand out of the nation, but not in his power. So his 4 generals came up after he died. 4 kingdoms stood up out of that nation, but not in his power, because under his power it was all united. But once he passed, his generals fought over the kingdom. Basically, they were at odds with each other over who would control all of the kingdom. 23. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And this is talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. Now I want to look into this. All right, Antiochus. So when it says that his strength would not be in his power, it was because he had mercenaries. All right. So maintaining an independent Judean state. The fighting spirit of the Jews was all the more impressive because at the beginning of their rebellion in 166, Antiochus had just demonstrated his might to the world at Daphne near Antioch with a grand review of his army. 46,000 foot soldiers were on parade, among them a Macedonian phalanx of 20,000 and 500 mercenaries equipped with Roman arms, followed by 8,500 horsemen, 306 armored elephants. All right, so as you can see, he had some Macedonians with him, and also he had 500 mercenaries. So he had a great army, but it wasn't necessarily in his own power. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, because he had mercenaries and other people joined unto his army. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and holy people. He took down the Jews, man. He took down our temple. He destroyed us as a people, not completely, of course, but he did a number on us, man. Daniel 8:25. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart. This is what Esau does even to this day. And by peace shall destroy many, meaning he would make pacts with people, but he wouldn't keep them. He would make agreements, but he wouldn't keep them. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And it just basically means he came up against the Most High, and broken without hand, meaning. Now, I think the story differs when you go into secular history than what you read in the scriptures. I believe in secular history, it says that he was assassinated, if I'm not mistaken. But then in the scriptures, it says that he wasn't. He just died. I believe he died of a sickness. So that's a discrepancy. But Esau's not going to give you the full story. Either way. Now the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. So he came against the Most High, but when he died, it wasn't by somebody else's hand. Thus saith the Lord. And I'm gonna believe what the Most High say, what the scriptures say. All right. Daniel 8:26. And the vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. Like I said, he was still in the Babylonian captivity, and it wasn't gonna come to pass until well into the Grecian, Grecian persecution during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. 27. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. You see, he was sick, man. Afterward, I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. And basically, he didn't understand it, even though it was described unto him, because it was for to come much later, at a much later time, And, let me see. Oh yeah, so this is what the scriptures say about Antiochus dying. So I had to look for it a little bit. And also, when you do this search right here, it says he cause of death was disease. So let's go to First Maccabees. Let's see, 6 and where should I start? I'll start at verse 1. About that time, King Antiochus, traveling through the high countries, heard say that Elamias in the country of Persia was a city greatly renowned for riches, silver, and gold, and that there was in it a very rich temple wherein were coverings of gold and breastplates and shields, which Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian king, who reigned first among the Grecians, had left there. Wherefore he came and sought to take the city and to spoil it, but he was not able, because they of the city, having had warning thereof, rose up against him in battle. So he fled and departed thence with great heaviness, and returned to Babylon. Verse 5. Moreover, there came one who brought in tidings into Persia that the armies which went against the land of Judea were put to flight, and that Lysias, who went forth first with a great power, was driven away of the Jews, and that they were made strong by the armor and power and store of spoils which they had gotten of the armies whom they had destroyed. Also that they had pulled down the abomination which he had set upon the altar in Jerusalem. That's the abomination of desolation spoken about, in Matthew and also in Daniel that we just read. And that they had compassed about the sanctuary with high walls as before, and his city Bethsura. Verse 8, and when the king heard these words, he was astonished and sore moved, whereupon he laid him down upon his bed and fell sick for grief, because it had not befallen him as he looked for. So he was sick. You know how they be like, oh, you sick, when something don't go somebody's way, when he literally got sick, Verse 9, and there he continued many days, for his grief was ever more and more, and he made account that he should die. And this is when he called the generals, and I believe, and told him he was about to die. Let me just skim down. 6 and 13. I perceive, therefore, that for this cause these troubles are come upon me, and behold, verse 12. I'm gonna read that now. Let me see. Did I skip for no reason? I'm gonna read 10, man. Wherefore he called for his friends and said unto them, the sleep is gone from mine eyes, and my heart faileth for very care. And I thought with myself, into what tribulation am I come, and how great a flood of misery is it wherein now I am? For I was bountiful and beloved in my power. But now I remember the evils that I did at Jerusalem, and that I took all the vessels of gold and silver that were therein, and sent to destroy the inhabitants of Judea without a cause. I perceive, therefore, that for this cause these troubles are come upon me, and behold, I perish through great grief in a strange land. See, he's broken without hand, like the scriptures say. Then called he for Philip, one of his friends, whom he made ruler over all his realm, gave him the crown in Rome. To the end he should bring up his son Antiochus and nourish him up for the kingdom. So King Antiochus died there in the 149th year. Yeah, so I just wanted to go on that, go into that. That's how he was broken without hand, when you get into, I guess I closed Daniel up one more time, Daniel 8. All right. And through his policy he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. He shall magnify himself in his heart. By peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, which is basically talking about the Most High, man. But he shall be broken without hand. And that's how he was broken without hand. He died of grief. Basically died of a damn broken heart. Damn devil. Oh well. Anyway, hopefully this lesson was edifying, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. I want to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. I got my hands down here. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, and salutation to the hopefully elect out there. All right, with that I'll say shalom.